Hey everyone, this is Jody Thomas, and welcome to the Dance of Surrender, where we are going to be talking about how to turn off your monkey mind, get more done, and flow effortlessly into your zone. I'm so excited to have today's guest here with us. So I found out about Dana Garrison through the Intuition Income Summit, which might actually be really interesting to some of you as well. Just to give you a little bit of a background story about Dana, Dana started her career with an undiagnosed chronic illness, living on a neighbor's futon. Through determination, she became a therapist, and it was at that time that she developed family entanglement work. Using this work, she grew a sold-out coaching practice and in a month and a half broke through 6 figures in 9 months, and she began to live a freedom lifestyle. She has helped to free thousands of people from their success blocks, relationship blocks, and health issues. Dana is an international business coach, author, and speaker. She's the president of the Entrepreneur and Small Business Institute, the founder of Freedom Tribe, and has been featured on the Huffington Post blog and Huffington Post Live. She helps people free themselves, grow an unstoppable business, and travel the world. All things that I think, for me at least, sound pretty incredible. And just to share... To share a little known tidbit about Dana, so maybe you feel a little bit cozier listening to everything she's going to talk about with us today. She says that she loves music from the 1920s and 1960s, things like old jazz, blues, and soul. And also she grew her business to 6 figures with a chronic illness. So pretty inspiring, that story, Dana.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
All right, well, let's dive right in. I would like to hear if you want to just tell us what your idea of surrender is. There's so many different perspectives out there, so just to give us a base to hear the rest of what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like in life we can find so many ways to procrastinate or to be busy and not productive. And I find that part of surrendering is being able to let go into what you need to do, what you need to do for your business, what you need to do for your relationships, your health, your life, and to surrender to those activities that you know are best for you. And I often find that it's necessary, or basically what I find is necessary to help with surrender is, I used to be a therapist for about a decade, and working with folks when they have dreams, they have goals. We all have stuff that we want to accomplish. We all have a way that we want to live life and how we want to feel. And what I've found over the years is helping people surrender into, 1, living the life they want, and 2, being able to take the actions that are required for that often has to do with clearing out enough inner blocks that are getting in the way so that you can actually let go more. And so that you can let your higher self guide you. And so you can stop procrastinating and start attracting the things that you want into your life, or doing the things that will bring you more of what you want in your life. So that's what I've seen over the years as a therapist is when people are having trouble surrendering into life and letting go, or sometimes it's really, like I said, surrendering into what's the right actions to be taking that's going to get you the life you want. Sometimes we resist the actions that we need to take to get us the life that we want. Really, what I've seen at the root cause of that is we've got to be willing to address our inner blocks that are preventing us from being able to surrender and preventing us from being able to take those actions, basically allowing procrastination to come in.
Absolutely, and I know we're going to get more into this, but I just want to pick up on that because I think maybe a lot of the listeners are not even aware or conscious of the fact that there are a lot of potential blocks that we maybe have had from childhood or from different events that have happened in our lives, and those could be blocking us from having high energy. They could be blocking us from living a more joyful and passionate life. And so I'm so excited to be chatting with you about this today as one of the experts that providing a little bit of a different perspective today. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you do? I've heard that your story is quite interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I came into this work in a really weird way. I came down with a mystery illness that no doctor could diagnose, and it gave me chronic fatigue and insomnia, anxiety and depression, cognition issues, and I went to doctor after doctor, and no one could help. And after some time, I realized that I was just going to have to get on with life. And eventually, I became a therapist. And, sometimes you just got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right, and keep going.
Yeah, life is still there.
Life is still there. And so I went out, I became a therapist, and then I learned something that changed the entire course of my life. I learned that our conscious mind is responsible for about 10% of what shows up in our life. And our unconscious habits and patterns are responsible for about 90% of what shows up in our lives. And so at the time, I realized as a therapist, I was barking up the wrong tree. And I went out and I started studying everything I could on how do you transform our unconscious habits and patterns. And I took the best of the best of the best, and I developed family entanglement work. And from that work, I started doing sessions on myself. And, of course, the first thing I addressed was health because I had that mystery illness. And symptom after symptom just totally lifted, totally disappeared. And then I wondered, can I use this to help me grow my business? At the time, I was working at a toxic workplace, and I knew I needed to get out. But I was scared to go on my own, and I was scared to basically start my own business because I was afraid, could I support myself? Could I make it work? And I started doing some sessions on myself, addressing my money blocks and addressing my success blocks. And then, sure enough, I was able, like you said, to grow a sold-out coaching practice in a month and a half. I was able to leave that job. And then even while I still had elements of that chronic illness in place because I didn't have a diagnosis yet, I was able to break through 6 figures in 9 months. And I didn't even know it. I wasn't even trying to break through 6 figures because I didn't even think that was possible, given what I was going through at the time. And I found out the next year when I was doing taxes that I did. So now one of the things that I do for people that I really love is helping them break free from their family entanglements so that they can have the lives that they want. Because I kind of feel like, have you heard the saying, millions of people still die with their music still in them?
No, but I love that.
Yeah,
Wow, that's very inspiring.
Millions of people still die. Millions of people die with their music still in them, and that really hits me hard. And I feel like it's sort of like a birthright to be able to live the life you want and to be able to contribute to the world in a way that's meaningful to you, to be able to live your passion. And so that's now why I do this work, so nobody dies with their music still in them. So we're creating as much positive change on the planet as possible by helping people basically live the lives they want to live and do the work that's the most meaningful to them.
Wow, yeah, dying with your music still inside of you. I think, yeah, I could say a lot about that, but I think I'm gonna pick up on another thing that you mentioned. This idea of family entanglements. This is something that it's a phrase that I've never heard. So I imagine that probably most of the listeners don't really know what that means. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Learning about entanglements is the most empowering, most freeing thing I've ever done because they have such a big effect on our lives. And when we don't know about them, we blame ourselves and we think that the reason we aren't successful in business or the reason that we're not successful in a relationship or the reason we're struggling with our health even is because we're not smart enough or we're not good enough or we don't have what it takes or there's something wrong with us. And what I've actually found over the years is that's not true. There are other major factors at play, and once we know about them, it gives us our self-esteem back. It gives us our confidence back, and we have power over them and can finally address the root cause of what's kind of holding us back so that we can have massive breakthroughs. So one of these root causes that I have figured out along the way is these family entanglements. Family entanglements are problems and patterns that we inherit from previous generations. So when someone in your family tree experienced a struggle or a tragedy in a certain area of life, that becomes what I call an originating incident, like an original incident, that kicks off an entanglement pattern down the generation. So for example, if your grandfather lived through the Great Depression and he lost all of the family money during the Great Depression, that might be what we call an originating incident. There was a large world factor that was at play, the Great Depression, and Grandpa was affected by that. He lost the family money. Now, that has an impact on Grandpa on a conscious level, but also on an unconscious level in terms of how he feels and relates to money. And so along comes Dad, your dad, right? Grandpa has Dad. And Dad gets entangled with this money entanglement, but his variation of the entanglement is that he goes bankrupt. And so the topic is the same. It's a money issue, but the way that it gets expressed can vary. So Dad's variation on the money entanglement is that he goes bankrupt. And then let's say you come along and you get entangled with this money entanglement, but your variation of the money entanglement is that you have trouble growing your business and it's not growing as fast as you'd like. And maybe you notice that you have a money ceiling. A money ceiling is the amount of money you're able to make per month or per year. And if you kind of look back at your track record, you might notice that there seems to be an upper limit to that. And so our money ceilings often come from our money entanglement. So what you want to look for is that when someone in your family tree goes through something that's challenging or difficult or a struggle, that could leave a lasting emotional imprint that gets passed down through the generations. And that happens in part because of epigenome. Epigenome are part of our DNA, and they get affected by the stresses that we encounter in life. So there's a lot of articles showing up right now everywhere, like Discover Magazine and BBC Health, talking about how what happened to your ancestors' lives has an effect on you, and that these problems and patterns can get passed down to generations. So if someone in your family tree ran into problems around money or success or relationships or health issues or even happiness like depression and anxiety, we can end up getting entangled with that pattern. And then what you'll find is that you've been struggling in that same area of life also. And so once you know about these things, the fantastic thing is that you're finally able to see the root cause, and then you can free yourself quite easily. You're not stuck with them. So I love that. I love that once you know about them, it releases this self-blame aspect that we've been carrying around, and also that once you know about them, it gives you power over them, and you can easily free yourself from them.
That sounds wonderful. So I would like to clarify, because I also work with alternative health, and I've heard the term family constellations, which is also a different kind of therapy. I don't know if you've heard of it, if maybe you could explain a little bit the difference.
Yeah, so when I developed this work, I sourced the way that this work is done from a lot of different modalities and therapies. And family constellation work is something that I studied along the way, and so there's elements of that in here as well. The concept that we inherit things from previous generations, and this understanding of that sources from Virginia Satir, who's an amazing therapist from back in the day, who was able to help people have huge transformations because she was working with them transgenerationally, meaning she was looking at the relatives going generations back, not just the parents. And family constellation work also looks at that from that perspective. So those elements have been sourced to create family entanglement work.
All right. Well, maybe you can give us a couple of examples of entanglements that might actually affect our ability to get into a flow state, because, I mean, since we're talking about surrender and flow, I find it fascinating, the idea that things that are in our unconscious, and I have found this in my own life too, that things that are in our unconscious actually might make us have low energy. It might make us feel tired all the time. It might actually block us from getting what we want, even though we want something with what we think is all of our heart and mind. If there's something in our subconscious that's kind of blocking that, and we just never seem to be able to do that. So maybe you can give us some examples of that.
Jody, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly true. What I found is a lot of our entanglements can actually like you said, make us tired, no matter how badly, no matter how much of our heart wants something. We can find that we are procrastinating, or we lose focus, or we feel confused or foggy when we go to do something, or we end up as you talked about before, being busy but not actually productive. So we're working a lot, but it's not actually moving us forward that much. So some of the entanglements that, right? Some of the entanglements that are worth thinking about, one of them is called the no permission for abundance entanglement. And so what you'd want to look for in your family tree is, was there somebody that grew up poor? Was there somebody that lost money, or they had money stolen from them, or they didn't get their fair share of inheritance, or maybe they didn't get their fair share after the selling of a business or after a divorce? These are all incidences that somebody can go through in life in your family tree that can basically kick off an entanglement pattern around money, a money entanglement. So what happens if you have this entanglement is you might notice that it's harder for your income to grow. You might notice that, as I said earlier, with a money entanglement, the business isn't growing as fast enough, the money isn't coming in fast enough or as much as we'd like. And when you have an entanglement like this, even though you might think, oh, it's specifically about money, it should only be affecting money, well, these things have a way of creating self-sabotage. So if you don't have permission for abundance, then our unconscious can start to create self-sabotage patterns like procrastination, resistance, feeling resistant to doing certain things for your business or for your career that would actually propel you forward. Another entanglement is called no permission for success. So what you would look for in your family tree for that one is, and by the way, it only takes one person who had a struggle in order to create an entanglement pattern that can go down to generations. So it's not like we need 50 people to have had this problem. It can just be one person that has this problem, and then not everyone below them, so to speak, that comes after them gets entangled with it. It's sort of like a genetic trait. Some people get it, some people don't. It skips generations, it skips people. So what you want to look for is, one, do you have any relatives in your family tree that went through some of these experiences? And two, are you showing some of the signs that you might be entangled with that? So for the no permission for success entanglement, what you want to look for in the family tree is, did somebody lose a business? Or did somebody fail a business? Was there somebody who never really saw success in their career or in their business? And that can, again, if you get entangled with that, you might notice that you often feel overwhelmed. This kind of stuff can prevent you from going into a flow state. You can end up feeling cloudy or lost. You might notice, again, that procrastination, that resistance to doing certain things, or just other forms of self-sabotage, like not calling people back that were kind of interested in working with you, or somebody invited you for a speaking engagement and you never called them back. Just little things like that that you think, what's wrong with me, right? And we often blame ourselves, like, why am I doing this? What's wrong with me? Why can't I? Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm not smart enough. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. There are underlying, much deeper reasons that actually hold us back and create this self-sabotage stuff. In fact, the root of most of our self-sabotage is often located in our family entanglements. So one of the things to notice right off the bat is we want to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, I'm not going to blame myself for stuff anymore and think that there's something wrong with me as a person, or I'm not good enough or smart enough. There's actually deeper stuff that I can take a look at that's really probably the root cause after all. And so the last one I'll share with you is called no permission for connection. And so what you would look for in your family tree is, did somebody lose a love, maybe to an accident or to death? Was somebody not able to marry someone they loved, maybe because of religion or race or class? Was someone in your family, did they show this, that they were living this very essence of no permission for connection? Were they stoic? Is there someone in your family you can think of that's really stoic or guarded, or their heart seems to be a bit walled off? So those would be some of the originating incidences to look for in the family tree. And then how that can affect us in terms of flow state is, let's say you're running a class or giving a talk. You might notice that it's harder for you to get into that state of flow and get into that state of ease. And that what's going to happen is you're not consciously feeling like you're doing anything wrong, but what happens with this entanglement is people will feel like they can't quite connect with you. that they don't feel fully connected to you. And they won't know why, they won't be able to name it, but for whatever reason, they will feel it, and then they won't sign up. They won't sign up for another class, or they won't sign up to be your client. And this happens in the world of relationships as well. When you have no permission for connection, it's hard to find that right partner, or you might find that there's a lot of fighting in your relationships, and it's hard to get in that flow state in your relationship where everything's feeling smooth and good and you guys are just jiving and rolling. So those are some examples of entanglement and how they also affect our ability to drop into flow state, drop into that place of ease, drop into even surrender.
Well, thank you so much. I guess the question that came up in my mind as you were, well, one of my questions you already answered. I was wondering if siblings would always have the same ones, but you already clarified that not everyone in the family tree is going to have these same patterns. My other question that came up was, do they actually build on each other? So you gave us several different examples, but like, so let's say I had a grandfather that had one of those, and then a grandmother on my other side that had another one, and then maybe like an aunt on the other side that had another one. Like, do they actually compound how intense they become?
Jody, you are so insightful. That is such a great question. Both of them, actually. Yeah, they do compound. What happens is each of us is really unique. We're like a fingerprint or a snowflake, right? We're all super individual on this in that we each can have a different variation of these clusters. I call them clusters. So what you basically named is a cluster. What I found is when one of the things you want to look for if you're thinking like, oh, I wonder if there's an entanglement at the root cause of why X hasn't happened in my life yet, or why X is such a struggle. What you want to look for is what's been a fairly long-standing pattern for you, or what's been a struggle for a little while. Usually anything that's a struggle for a while delineates that it's a pattern, and a lot of things that are longer-standing negative patterns will end up, the root cause will end up being a cluster of family entanglements. And so different entanglements can actually cluster together and hold a problem in place. So, for example, if it's a problem around growing your business and it's not growing as fast as you want or as fast as you need, I might say, it can be that there's a couple people that have the no permission for success entanglement in your family tree, and that's clustered together with a couple of people who are struggling with the no permission for abundance entanglement, and maybe there's one person who has that no permission for connection thing, and they kind of cluster together and create a roadblock. And so what's great, actually, is that, or one thing that I really like is you don't actually have to address every single one of those incidences in order to have breakthroughs in that area of life. So even if you have a cluster where there's 5 things clustered together, you might only need to address 2 or 3 of them, and then boom, the doors just open and there's flow, and clients are coming in, and you're getting more signups. And one of the interesting things about this work is it's not even like you're having to do something different, although that does happen. I've worked with people where after they remove some entanglements, it's suddenly easier to make those phone calls, and they're making more return phone calls, and more people are signing up. But the other half of the time, you're actually attracting and magnetizing more positive things into your life without doing anything different. So I know that sometimes you talk about the difference between doing and being. This actually also changes your beingness in such a way that you just start attracting more business, or sort of an upgraded level of people to date, or your health just starts to improve without you actually taking different actions. So you actually get results on both sides of that scale. And yes, you're so spot on with your intuition. They do cluster together. And you asked about siblings. You're right. Not everybody gets the entanglement as it goes down the generation. But I will tell you something really interesting that people love, which is there's a difference. There's a rule of thumb when it comes to birth order. So if you're a firstborn, you tend, this is just a rule of thumb, it's not always true across the board, but if you're a firstborn, you tend to pick up on more of the entanglement on your dad's side of the family tree, more of dad's patterning and dad's family tree patterning. If you're a secondborn, you tend to pick up more on mother's side of the family tree. If you're a thirdborn, you tend to pick up on a little bit of both sides of the family tree, and then you might also end up picking up on the relationship patterns between your parents. even deeper. A fourthborn tends to have it really rough. Fourthborns often end up, there's a lot of fourthborns that will have problems with like drugs, alcohol, going to jail, just like really rough stuff in life. They tend to have a more tumultuous time with the entanglements in general. And then once you start with fifthborn, the pattern begins from the beginning. So fifthborn is father, sixthborn is mother, and the pattern repeats. And then if you're an only child, you tend to pick up on everything. So one of the first things that you want to do when you get born is to get some brothers and sisters. Yeah, because it all falls on you. So I'm an only child. So this work changed my life because I was rife with entanglements. I was full of them because I'm an only child. So I just picked up on a lot of them. And, it made a huge difference once I addressed them.
Oh my gosh, that is an absolutely fascinating thing. And it's interesting. I had heard the thing about the firstborn kind of, in it, not even necessarily talking about entanglements, it was referring to a different thing, that the firstborn often has a little bit more tension or a roughness on the father side, like with the father, and the secondborn often has a little bit more of some sort of conflict with the mother. So that's really fascinating that you said that.
Yeah. So those are great. Yeah, super insightful, Jody. Spot on.
All right. Well, maybe you can share some stories, like before and after stories, so we can understand a little bit more the transformation that this work with the entanglements actually creates for people.
Oh, yeah. So there was a woman that I worked with named Jasmine, and she was the owner of some elder care facilities, 2 elder care facilities, and she had trouble filling that second facility. And it was costing her a lot because she still had to pay rent on the space. She still had to pay her staff. And so when she came to me, she said, I've got to fill this space. It's literally sucking money out of my bank account. And so I looked into her family history, and I saw that her father was a door-to-door salesman, and he was never successful with it because he had trouble asking for payment. Now, she didn't grow up around her father, so it doesn't matter if you've ever met the relative, ever heard of the relative, if you've ever even heard of their problems, because this is not a conscious mind endeavor. As I said earlier, this stuff gets passed down through the epigenome, and it also gets passed down through the unconscious mind from generation to generation. So she didn't grow up around her dad. Her parents divorced when she was young. But nonetheless, he was a traveling salesman he would make the sale of whatever the product was, but he wouldn't go around and collect payment. So he was never successful. So Jasmine was entangled with this. This is the no permission for abundance entanglement. And when we disentangled her from this, she was able to fill her facility within a month, and her business went from a 5-figure a year business to a 6-figure a year business as well. So, and here's the thing that she told me when she got back to me. She said, I didn't do anything different. I didn't do more marketing. I didn't send out more flyers. I didn't go do more speaking engagements. It was that when I was out in public and I was just hanging out with people and they would ask me what I did, I would tell them, and suddenly, after we did our work together, people would be really attracted to wanting to hear more, and then they'd suddenly say, I want to bring my parents to your facility. And they just wanted to sign up. So something in her shifted, and she magnetized it. It was a beingness one.
That's amazing. I actually, it's fascinating that you bring this up, because I think that maybe this is a little bit more obscure to understand for people, but I have absolutely felt that in my own life, where I've done a lot of alternative therapies, received a lot of alternative therapies, and sometimes after I receive one, I just, without changing necessarily my day-to-day actions, I will just notice that people react to me in a different way. Even, you know, my partner or my parents, once I have worked through something, they actually change the way that they react to me.
Totally. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head, babe. That is so it. Yes. 1,000 times yes. That's what I've seen as well over the years working with people. This is what people report to me. Other people are reacting to me differently, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything different. So I love it. There was another woman I worked with named Annetta, and she was a very interesting, this is an interesting story in that she was stunning inside and out, so beautiful. and yet she had never had a really solid long-term boyfriend. And she had taken numerous courses on attracting her soulmate over the years, and still nothing showed up. So she was taking action. She was taking courses. She was in education, and still nothing showed up. And at the time that she met me, she was afraid she would be alone for the rest of her life. And she didn't want that. So I looked in her family tree, and I saw that she was named after her aunt, who died alone, a spinster. Now, when we're named after somebody specific in the family tree, we often pick up on their negative patterning. So you want to think about, is my first name or my middle name named after anybody? And if it is, what was their life like? Because that's one of the fast places to be able to figure out where some of your entanglements come from, so you know exactly, you have conscious awareness instantly on, oh my goodness, that's why I'm struggling with this. It's because so-and-so also was. So for Annetta, this was the no permission for connection entanglement. And when we worked on that, when we disentangled her from that, I think within 2 months, she met a man that fit what she had been wanting for so many years and what she had journaled about. You know how people write down and they journal what they're looking for in a partner? She attracted a guy that hit that list, and they fell in love. And so sometimes I meet people where it's been a lifetime of living with a particular pain or struggle, and they've tried everything and throwing the kitchen sink at it, throwing the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and nothing sticks. And when we finally can get to what I believe is the root cause, right, as opposed to trying to deal with the symptoms and addressing it from a symptom level, when you drill all the way down to the root cause and address it from there, then you finally get that traction.
Absolutely. This is amazing, amazing stuff. So you mentioned that you would love to do a session for the audience. So I think that, now that we've kind of understood a little bit more what it is that you're talking about, maybe you can just give us a little mini experience about this so that people can see whether they think that they might have any of these entanglements that you explained to us.
Yeah, you know what I'll do actually? Rather than doing a session that helps you identify an entanglement, I'm going to do a session that helps you remove an entanglement.
Even better.
Right? So let's do one on the money entanglement, because that's often a really popular request that I get. Now remember, we often have clusters of entanglements that work together, and sometimes we're entangled with more than one person when it comes to the money entanglement. Now that said, I've done these sessions for people before where even though we're only working on one entanglement and we're doing sort of a mini session, they still write back to me and tell me, like, oh my gosh, after that session you did, I started seeing this happen. I started seeing that happen. So we'll do a money entanglement because it is such a fun and popular topic. And here's what we should do for it. So you want to, if you can, get into a space where you have some standing room. So, take whatever you're listening on, your phone, your device, with you, and find some place where you can stand where you've got maybe 4 feet of space in front of you. So if you're in the living room, just move some stuff aside, maybe move some furniture if you need to, so you've got some clearing.
Okay, so 4 feet in front of you.
Yeah, about 3-4 feet in front of you has some open space. And what we're going to do is I'm going to be guiding you to imagine. I'm going to be guiding you actually to move around a bit. So we're going to be moving around in 3D space. And so start by standing and facing the direction that has about 4 feet in front of you or so, or even more. It's fine. And then take a moment and take a nice deep breath and let it all go. Another nice deep breath and let all of that go. Wiggle your toes on the ground, feel your legs, feel the lower half of your body. And then I'd like you to, in essence, call into the space a relative who struggled with money. So if you can think of a relative who might have had some struggles around money, you want somebody who's older than you, at least a generation older. So someone from your parents' generation, mom, dad, aunts and uncles, grandparents' generation, including great aunts and uncles, great grandparents. And if you can't think of anybody in particular, you can just call in. We're just going to imagine that we're calling in a relative who struggled with money. You don't need to know who they are consciously. So you don't need to know, this is my Uncle Jack. You're just going to imagine that a relative steps into the room, an ancestor in essence, who struggled with money. And if you do have someone in mind, I'd like you to call them into the room, so to speak, and imagine that they're standing about 4 feet in front of you. And take a moment and connect with them. Let's just have the both of you connect eye to eye. And notice how you feel as you connect with them. And if you know a little bit of their story around their struggle with money, please bring that to mind as you're connecting with them. Notice if you feel that in any way pulling on your heartstrings, if you feel any sympathy, empathy, compassion, if you feel bad for them or sad for them in any way for their struggles. And notice, think for a moment about any of the money struggles or the money challenges in your own life. Bring that to mind for a moment. Some of the ways that shows up for you. And notice if there's any similarity. Notice if there's any similarity between how money challenges show up for you and how money challenges might have showed up for that person. And then go ahead and leave a hologram of you standing where you are, so to speak. Imagine we can leave a hologram of you standing where you are. Step out of your body, walk on over beside the other person, and step into their body. Step into their experience. Let's stand in their shoes for a moment. Put your feet where the feet go. Put your hands where the hands go. Breathe with their lungs. Look out their eyes. And put your heart where their heart is. What do you notice about how they're feeling right now and what their experience is? As you're standing in their experience, close your eyes. And if you happen to know anything about some of their money challenges or money struggles, as you're standing in their experience, let's have them think about their money challenges or their money struggles. Think about it from their perspective. And then let's listen in on their thoughts. What are some of their thoughts around money? What are some of their beliefs about money? What are some of their emotions around money? What are some of the emotions that go with those thoughts and beliefs that they were having around money? And are any of those thoughts familiar to you? Are any of those thoughts or those beliefs or those feelings in any way, shape, or form familiar to you? I ask that because when we get entangled with our relatives, we actually pick up on their thoughts, their beliefs, and their feelings around money. We literally get entangled with their thoughts, their beliefs, their feelings. And so even though we're experiencing those thoughts and feelings in our own mind and body, those thoughts and feelings don't actually belong to us. They belong to the relative, and we've, in essence, inherited them, so to speak. We've gotten entangled with them. So one thing I'd like you to do right now is, as you're standing in the relative's experience, I'd like you to start feeling into the relative's strength. Start sensing into the relative's strength. In life, whenever we go through challenges, that always is what makes humans stronger. It gives us experience. We begin to learn from life. We can grow wisdom from that. And so as you're standing now in the relative's experience, I'd like you to feel into their strength. What are some of the strengths gained after having gone through some of those experiences? Now, I'm actually going to call in. I'd like you to, in essence, I'd like you to imagine that we're going to invite into the space two of your great ancestors that have a very strong, very good, very positive relationship with money. For them, money's a flow state. It is just keyed in and dialed in. It comes easy for them. They don't have any blocks around it. So I'd like you to, we don't need to know who these ancestors are. We don't have to know them by name. But given how many ancestors that we each have in our past, there are definitely ancestors that have had an open channel, an open flow when it comes to money. So I'd like you to imagine that two of these ancestors come into the room. And one comes and stands behind your relative, which is where you're standing right now. And one comes and stands behind the hologram of you. I'm going to ask these two ancestors to place their hands on both of yours shoulders. So the two ancestors that are standing behind, if they can place their hands on the relative's shoulders and the hologram of you's shoulders. And I'm going to ask these ancestors to first just send in this essence of support. You're not alone. We're here. We've got your back. You can relax now. It's safe. Your job is to take some slow, deep breaths as you're standing in the relative's experience, as the relative receives this support. And then look across the way and notice that hologram of you who's also receiving that support and relaxing into that support. I'm going to ask both of those great ancestors to start transferring into the hologram of you and the relative this permission for abundance. They both possess this permission for abundance that's part of your family tree. I'm going to ask the two ancestors, the two great ancestors, to start transferring in this permission for abundance. Your job as you're standing in the relative's shoes is to breathe in this energy, this essence, this permission for abundance into your mind, into your body, letting it go all the way through your body. Let's leave the relatives standing where they are for a moment. So if you can pop out of them, so to speak, step out of their experience, walk back over to your hologram, and let's stand back in your shoes. Take a moment and feel this great ancestor standing behind you, this ancestor who has this great, wonderful, open connection with money, open flow with abundance. And feel into them sending in this permission for abundance into your mind and your body, beginning to fill your body with this energy, this essence, this permission for abundance in every cell in your body. Using your breath to breathe it into your body and allowing it to fill you from head to toe, from back to front, from side to side, and all around you. Now, the struggles that we go through in life, we might say that they end up being part of each of our divine journeys. A lot of times when you ask people, when they've gone through something challenging, would you change it? You ask them, years later, would you change that? Would you have gone back and done it differently? And they say, you know what? No, because I've grown so much from it. I've learned so much from it. And if that didn't happen and I didn't learn those things, then these other things would have never happened that were wonderful that came along later. So what we want to start to do here is to honor and respect other people's divine journey. And right now, standing across from you is this relative who went through their own money challenges. As you are receiving this transfer of permission for abundance from the ancestor behind you, please look across the way at your relative and begin to behold them, begin to look at them with the eyes of trust. Trust that they can handle and hold their own divine journey. Trust that maybe, somehow, the things that they went through ended up helping them, being for their greatest good in some way, shape, or form, allowing for some other things to unfold later, or allowing for experience gained and wisdom earned. Part of letting go of the entanglement for you is being able to give all of that back, not looking at the relative as somebody who's struggling or who can't handle it on their own or feeling this sadness for them, but instead allowing them to have their divine journey of their life and trusting that they are indeed deep, deep down inside strong enough for that. And that journey has made them stronger, deep, deep down inside. Because what we've seen in society is that the people who have gone through stuff are the ones that are the strongest. So I'm going to step into your relative's experience for a moment. I'm going to step into their shoes, and I'm going to step into the very depths of their heart, their true self. So if you've actually met this relative, if you know this relative or know any stories about them, if you've had any past experiences with them, now is the time to file all of those old stories away in a dusty old filing cabinet. It's not going to help us right now while we're doing this work. So any stories that you have about this person, now's the time to set all of that aside and only look at the core essence of this person, almost like you're looking at their spirit, their true self, their core self. In fact, you're looking at them deep inside, underneath their entanglements. Because remember, people's entanglements limit them from being able to live from their core self or their true self. So drop all those old stories, looking deep into the core of this person and deep into their heart space, so to speak. I'm going to step into the core of this person and speak some words of release to you. When I speak these words, I'd like you to hear them coming from your relative, and your job is to breathe these words of release into your body. Okay, I'm going to step in. My fate with money is mine. You leave that with me. It's part of my divine journey. And there's nothing here for you to fix. There's nothing here you need to help me with. I can handle it. And it belongs with me. When you have ease with money, you're not betraying me. And when you have ease with money, you still belong. And we're still connected. Speaking as Dana, breathe those words into your body deep, deep down. And then put your hand on your heart so that you're speaking from the depths of your heart. And bow your head and say these words out loud back to your relative. I honor your fate with money. And I respectfully give it back to you. It's part of your divine journey. And there's nothing here for me to fix. Thank you for your blessing. I heard what you said. When I have ease with money, I'm not betraying you. And when I have ease with money, I still belong. And we're still connected. And breathe those words into your body, deep, deep down into every cell. Imagine it going all the way down to the DNA so that every cell carries out these instructions. Every cell. Okay, very good. You can raise your head. Put your arms back down by their sides. And from this updated, upgraded place that you're standing now, look across the way at your relative with new eyes, so to speak, looking at them and looking at them in their power, in their strength, wisdom gained from their life experience. Feel the support of the two ancestors, the one behind you supporting you, the one behind the relative supporting the relative. All right, very good. Take a picture of this. Take a snapshot of this, a mental picture, the way it looks, the way it feels, and give it a place in your heart where this session lives and continues to deepen and integrate in the days and weeks to come. All right, let's allow these characters, these representatives, the ancestors and the relative to just sort of float away or bubble up like champagne bubbles. And let's have you start to walk around the room a little bit, even if or walk around your house or wherever you are. It's fine if you're pacing back and forth or walking in circles. If it's hard to walk, you can sit down and march your feet up and down or tap on alternating knees, left, right, left, right. That's going to get us some cross-hemispheric integration. It helps the mind to integrate the session between the two hemispheres. Allow yourself to come all the way back to here and now as you're walking around. Let your eyes fall on whatever they fall on in the room and notice something beautiful about whatever you look at. A color, a shape, a texture. All right, very good. Nicely done, everyone.
Wow, Dana, thank you so much for that. I had a pretty deep experience with that, and it's amazing. I think the part about belonging, I think, is pretty huge. I mean, I really got a deep feeling that, you know, a lot of families, and even on both sides, I think it's common to be attracted partners that have similar family histories, and when you have something like that, you do. I mean, my family is a pretty humble family. They've always been working class, and so I had an experience of like having to always work really hard to make your money or something like this, and giving that permission, like, you still belong and I'm still connected to you, even if you don't have to work hard for your money.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Wow, you just gave me full body chills when you said that. That was amazing. And you did it again, Jody, with your intuition. You are so right. When we have active entanglements and imprints, we attract other people who have similar entanglements and imprints. Imprints is something we didn't go into today. That's the other half of what seems to be the root cause of getting in the way of flow states and surrender and causing self-sabotage.
Well, maybe you can tell people where they can find out more about that, about what you're doing. Maybe give us your website.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to give a gift to you guys. I created a course, an online course called Get Unstuck and Finally Have What You Want. And so that course actually goes into, goes deeper into family entanglements. It'll introduce to you childhood imprints, and it'll help you uncover which entanglements you have that are active. And I'm also going to do another session to help you guys break free. And I'm going to give you guys 2 guides to check out before you do the course. 2 written guides, one on family entanglements and the other on childhood imprints. And so when you choose a date that you want to attend the course, be sure to leave enough time to read the 2 guides first. Those 2 guides are actually going to illuminate and shine a light on the darkness and help you, like I said earlier, become empowered. You're going to be able to see the root causes. And most people tell me, oh my gosh, once I read those guides, everything makes sense. And it was like a perfect match to how my life has been unfolding and the particular struggles I've had, exactly matched what I noticed in my family tree and what I noticed about my childhood. Like, it makes so much sense now, and I feel like I have power over it. I feel empowered with it. I have clarity around it. I'm not blaming myself anymore. My self-esteem is coming back. I'm feeling more confident. So, yeah, make sure you have time to read those 2 guides first before you do the online course part, and get ready for another breakthrough session.
Wow, Dana, thank you so much. And you want to just tell us your website in case people want to go check that out?
Yes, you can go grab that at www.danagarrison.com/gift. So that's spelled DANAGARRISON.com/gift, GIFT.
All right, wonderful. And that link will also be in the email that people clicked on to get to you, so they can go back there also if they want to make it easier.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dana. This has been very eye-opening, I think, in terms of flow, of how we can really find ways that are not even necessarily in our conscious or definitely not our fault to help us to get past these things and make it easier for us to get into flow.
Yes, so much. Jody, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your summit and for allowing me to be able to share this work, because it's made, it's, I owe everything to this work. I owe my own transformation from my health issues. I owe being able to grow a business quickly and live a freedom lifestyle and all that stuff to this work. So it's such a pleasure to get to basically illuminate it and bring it to the world. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you to our audience for staying with us through that. And I hope that everybody was able to get deep into that meditation. And, you know, maybe everyone even wants to come back and do it again a little bit later with a different family member or with a different issue. So thank you so much, Dana, and we will be in touch.
Wonderful. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.